On May 25, 1961, President John F. Kennedy stood before a joint session of Congress and made a promise that seemed almost delusional. He declared that the United States would land a man on the moon and return him safely to the Earth before the end of the decade. At the time, America's total experience with human spaceflight was a single 15-minute suborbital flight by Alan Shepard, who had been launched on a rocket that had a disturbing tendency to explode on the launch pad. The Soviet Union had already put Yuri Gagarin into orbit. America was losing the space race, and Kennedy was betting the nation's prestige on a goal that most engineers considered impossible within the timeline. NASA threw itself into the challenge with a budget that would peak at over 4% of the entire federal budget, more than $35 billion in today's money per year. Over 400,000 people worked on the Apollo program across 20,000 companies and universities. They had to invent almost everything from scratch: a rocket powerful enough to escape Earth's gravity, a spacecraft that could navigate to the moon and back, a lunar module that could land on an alien surface, spacesuits that could withstand the vacuum and temperature extremes, and a computer guidance system that had less processing power than a modern pocket calculator. The Saturn V rocket, designed by Wernher von Braun and his team, was the most powerful machine ever built. It stood 363 feet tall, weighed 6.2 million pounds fully fueled, and generated 7.5 million pounds of thrust at liftoff, enough to shake buildings 20 miles away. Its 5 F1 engines each burned 15 tons of fuel per second. The noise at ignition was so intense that it could be felt in the chest from 3 miles away. No rocket before or since has matched its lifting capacity, and its development consumed years of engineering effort and testing that pushed the boundaries of materials science, combustion physics, and structural engineering. The cost of the program was measured in more than dollars. On January 27, 1967, a fire erupted inside the Apollo 1 command module during a routine launch pad test, killing astronauts Gus Grissom, Ed White, and Roger Chaffee. The pure oxygen atmosphere inside the capsule turned the cabin into an inferno in seconds. The hatch could not be opened from the inside quickly enough. The disaster nearly destroyed the Apollo program and led to a complete redesign of the spacecraft, delaying the schedule by over a year. But NASA pressed on, driven by the deadline and the knowledge that every month of delay was a month the Soviet Union might beat them. On July 16, 1969, Apollo 11 launched from Kennedy Space Center in Florida before a crowd of over 1 million spectators lining the beaches and highways. Aboard were Commander Neil Armstrong, Lunar Module Pilot Buzz Aldrin, and Command Module Pilot Michael Collins. The journey to the moon took 3 days. On July 20, Armstrong and Aldrin separated the lunar module Eagle from the command module Columbia and began their descent to the surface. The landing computer overloaded with data and flashed warning alarms. Armstrong took manual control and flew the module over a boulder field, searching for a clear spot, while the fuel gauge dropped toward zero. Mission control fell silent. At 4:17 p.m. Eastern Time, a probe extending from the Eagle's footpad touched the lunar surface, and a blue contact light illuminated on the instrument panel. Armstrong radioed the words the world was waiting to hear: "Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed." In mission control, flight controllers erupted in cheers and tears. 6 hours later, Armstrong climbed down the ladder and placed his boot on the powdery gray surface, speaking the words that would be remembered for as long as human beings exist. "That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." Buzz Aldrin joined him minutes later, and together they planted an American flag, collected rock samples, and bounced across the surface in the 1/6 gravity. An estimated 600 million people watched the moonwalk on live television, the largest audience for any single event in human history up to that point. Armstrong and Aldrin spent just 2 hours and 31 minutes on the surface before returning to the Eagle, docking with Columbia, and beginning the 3-day journey home. They splashed down in the Pacific Ocean on July 24, 1969, and the impossible promise Kennedy had made 8 years earlier was fulfilled. 12 men would walk on the moon before the Apollo program ended in 1972. Humanity had left its cradle, stepped onto another world, and looked back at the small blue planet that held everything it had ever known.